This Military Appreciation Month, we are honoring a few of the many brave veterans of Tuscarawas County. We want to thank the Cavallina team at Raymond James Financial Services in Dover for making these military features possible. Now take a listen to these stories of those courageous veterans who sacrificed so much and how they continue to inspire us. Now today's episode is a little bit different from my previous 3 interviews. I had the honor to talk with Michele Nepsa, the mother of an Iraqi war veteran. Michele's son, Corporal Keith Nepsa, was killed by a roadside bomb in Iraq. Who was Keith as a kid? What was Keith like? Tell us a little bit about Keith.
Keith was very special. He was just, he was his own person. He never tried to be in any fads or, whatever everybody else was doing. That wasn't necessarily what he was doing. He just would make you laugh because he just was such his own person, and he didn't care. Like, he didn't care if anybody made fun of his hair or his clothes or whatever. It was just, this is who he was.
He had that bright blonde hair.
Yeah, and then one time he dyed it blue and he got expelled from school.
He did? Yes. I do remember him. So Keith and I graduated together. I've known him since we were both in 4th grade. That was when I transferred to Philly, and we were in the same class together. I do remember him being kind of his own person. Never really, you're absolutely right. He didn't really follow the trends. He wanted to do him and be him, and he was really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. He was a jokester.
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely funny.
Do you have any funny memories of him from growing up where he was just a real big prankster with his siblings? Because he was your middle child?
Yes,
Yeah,
he was my middle. Not so much with he was prankster with the kids or his sister and brother, but he loved to get massaged or whatever. So he would talk his sister into doing his hair. Nice. So that basically she was massaging his head, brushing, and put little things, and he would just sit there. And it's like, Keith, you're using your sister. I would tell her that he's using you, but she liked doing it.
Right. If little sisters look up to their little brothers in so many ways.
Gosh.
So, yeah,
But he used to, my Dalmatian at the time, he tortured that poor dog. And I cannot believe she never bit him.
Really?
I would put dog food in the dish, and he'd go over and put his hands over it, and she would growl and growl and growl, and then he'd pretend like he was eating it, and she'd growl, and I kept thinking she's gonna bite him. Never once did she bite him.
Well, they must have had a loving relationship.
Oh, definitely.
Love-hate.
Oh yeah, he carried her around like a baby, on her back. And then one time we had this Dalmatian Halloween costume. It had this little Dalmatian hat. And so he had it on his head, and he was walking around acting like he was her, and then eating out of her dish. Oh my God, yeah,
So he was a really big, funny man.
Oh yeah.
Had a great, a big personality.
Oh
in
yeah,
the house, for sure. What drew him to enlist in the military?
So he wanted to go to college, and I was a single parent, and he just didn't want to put that burden on me. So he thought going into the service would be an option, and that way his schooling would get paid for, and it wouldn't, take away anything from us, and that was basically his reasoning.
Wow, what was your reaction to that?
It wasn't the greatest. It wasn't the greatest because none of my kids had been away from me, It just wasn't that.
And being a single mom, those are your babies.
Right. And then it wasn't too long after that, then that's when the conflicts started up. And everyone, all the older guys that had been in the service was trying to tell me that it wasn't going to last and he's going to be okay. And, and it never stopped. So
when he was 18, is that when he went to enlist, or was it after?
No, he in school. They have the the guys come, the different branches to the
ROTC.
school
Oh,
to try
okay,
to
yeah.
like, entice them all into how wonderful everything is. And that was when he got the idea of, hey, so he actually signed up and they needed my signature because he wasn't 18.
Oh, okay.
And I just kind of refused and said, when you turn 18, you can sign it, sign your papers. It wasn't really that long after that, so.
Was when he came home that first day and said, Mom, I'm going to join the military. What was that conversation like?
I was shocked, first of all, because it just kind of came out of left field,
Yeah.
not expecting it. It wasn't something we'd ever discussed. We were never a really big military family. I mean, I think my dad was in Vietnam, and I'm not sure if my grandpa, but it wasn't something, some families, you talk about that, and that's a big thing, and we just didn't. So it kind of was, and I thought, it'll go.
It'll be a phase.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't.
No,
No.
it wasn't.
Do you remember when he left? What, did he go to boot camp like right after we graduated?
Yeah, he actually, I was looking at some papers the other day, and he turned 18 on the 2nd, and I want to say he left on the 6th or something
wow.
like that. Yeah.
That was quick.
Yeah, well, because he'd already signed up.
Everything, yeah.
Everything months before.
What was his role whenever he joined the military?
I know he had a couple different ones. At the end here, he was shooting a big gun out of a tank, basically. That was kind of what he was doing.
Whenever he was going to join, you mentioned him going to go to school, and that would have been a reason, to get his schooling paid for. Was there something he was looking forward to doing?
Oh yeah, he was big into computers.
Yeah.
He really wanted to, he was big into gaming, and he was building, games. He had some friends that had never physically met, but they were like good
buddies.
Friends. They'd been playing online for so many years. And they were all kind of getting this together and building things.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Have you been in touch with those friends?
I did. Shortly after he passed, I did get on and contact them because a lot of them weren't aware.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
I had, I just told them, and,
How did he pass away? What was the situation over there when it happened?
So I know they told everything up front. I know that, but I've kind of just kind of shut out what I didn't want to know. So after I knew I was going to meet with you, I went through some things, and I found some papers basically explaining what had happened. I mean, I knew they'd ran over an IED, and it was his friend driving, and then him in the passenger seat, and then there was another guy that was at the gun, whatever that is, and then there was an interpreter in the back, and I'm not sure if there was a fifth person or not. Him and Jeremy both were killed instantly. Jeremy, that was in the gun, he was thrown out, and he was in a coma for I don't know how many months, but he did survive, and I mean, injuries that we can't see, but he did survive.
Have you been in touch with him?
He actually came to visit. It wasn't too long after he got came out of the coma and was going back home and stuff. He did stop by, and then he friended me on Facebook. But I get some of the guys I know. I have one guy that calls me randomly. He lives in Illinois, and it's just really hard for him. He's really not good. So I'll try to send him texts and stuff, and sometimes he'll respond, and other times he doesn't, and I don't try to push it on because I don't know how hard it is for them.
Yeah. Was he
that they
there
were
when it
being
happened?
there. He was in that
accident.
He was in one of the vehicles that were on
okay.
patrol.
For those that may not know, what is an IED? Is that what it's called?
It's they put these little explosives, like they hide them in the ground or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And then when you run over them, it
explodes.
explodes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know where Keith was going? Where they?
They had, that was funny because I did find this, and it says that they had went out, they responded to a crisis in the village of Heschel, Iraq, and so they were treating injured civilians. They began to go back to the base, and when on their way back, it detonated under the vehicle. And it said that there was no actions that he or the platoon could have done to prevent the tragic accident. So,
And when did that happen? What year was that?
2007.
Now, during the 4 years before, we'll just call it the accident, were you able to keep in touch with him?
Oh, yeah.
How was that like?
It was like the phone calls weren't that wasn't a big option back then. Now you can do it more, and plus they have the where you can do the video chat and stuff. Unfortunately, that wasn't really a big thing back then. He would call every now and then. He would get to call, but most of our conversations were via Yahoo Chat, which I don't even know if they have that anymore.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard of that, but okay.
Really, yeah. It was their messenger, whatever it was, and then an email.
Okay.
So I would, jump on random times of the day because, the time difference and everything. So it wasn't always like I knew he would be on or whatever. But I knew he would be on, and we would just go back and forth. And it was just like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, it wasn't the normal, hey, son, how are you doing? Is everything okay? It'd be like, hey, you big dummy, and then there was a song, the song that never ends.
Yeah.
This is the song, and then I'm Too Sexy by Right Said Fred. He hated those songs, so like I would type, that would be, and he'd be like, stop it, shut up.
I think that just shows your relationship, the loving mother-son relationship.
Well, and it was, and I'd send stuff over to him, and we sent over, like the one time I sent, candy and chips and things that I knew he liked and would miss from home. And then I went and bought a whole bunch of like rubber spiders, and I dumped them in there because he's petrified of spiders. And, I'd send that stuff over. And there was a few other things. It was like, and then I was talking to these mothers, and they're like, yeah, we sent pillows and socks. And I was like, oh, is that what was that I supposed to be doing that? 'Cause
you sound like such a fun mom.
I don't know.
What was his reaction? He was probably like, Mom.
He loved it. Yeah, he said that every time he got a box, like everybody would come around because they just had to see what I did this time.
Oh my God.
But then I would send over, like I sent Frisbees and, just fun stuff for him to do with his friends, dart guns, water guns.
Okay, you are the fun mom.
Yeah.
For sure, absolutely. I just imagine him opening the box full of spiders and just shaking his head.
Oh, yeah.
Mom, I swear.
I know. Wait till I get home.
I know, right? Did he ever get to come home during those 4 years?
Yeah.
He did.
He got to come home shortly after basic training. He was home, I think, for a month. And then he went back, and then he was deployed. And then after he was deployed, he got to come home again for a short time. And then...
was that the last time he was home?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And what year would that have been?
Gosh, he wasn't in there too long before he was deployed. So it was probably like, I want to say like December of that year that he went in, that he was deployed.
Okay.
And so they're in there for a year. And then he got to come home for a month. And then, because it wasn't too long after basic training that he was deployed.
Okay. And then how did you find out about him passing?
So I was at work at that time. I worked down at Twin City Hospital, and I worked 12s on the weekend. So I had just went to work, and I had to be there. I worked 7 to 7, and I was there probably about 20 or 25 minutes, and my mom called me, and she's like, hey, you've got to get home. And I'm like, what, what's going on? And she said, you just have to get home. Well, my mind went everywhere because, like, my dog had been sick too. So I'm like, oh my God, the dog. And plus, she had seizures, had epilepsy, whatever.
Is this a Dalmatian?
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh my God, she's died. Something happened. And then my oldest son and I had been arguing. He'd left, and someone told me he had been sleeping out of his truck because he just was, So then I'm like, oh no, something happened to him. And, I mean, your mind just kind of goes to wherever. And that was the farthest thing from my mind. And when I pulled into my driveway, there was 2 military kids, basically young boys, standing on my front porch. And I mean, they didn't have to say a word, but they have to. They have to come in.
You knew right away.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're not there to tell you anything good,
right?
For sure.
Now, you didn't know all of the details at that point, or did you just know that he had passed away?
Yeah, they just come and they just read you this thing that says, 2 June 2007 or 07, I don't know how they say it, and honestly, I couldn't tell you what they said.
Yeah.
It was just, it's such a blur, but after it's all over, said and done, I just think, what a horrible job for those boys to have to do.
Right.
I mean, because it was bad, my mom was bawling and I was bawling, and I kept telling him, please leave, just please leave,
Yeah.
So.
And what was the process after that like within?
So then they left, and of course, we started making phone calls and stuff, got his brother home, and then I don't know how long it was, and this guy from the service showed up at my door, and he was the person that kind of is with you through the entire process. Like, you don't have to do anything. He just tells you. But yeah, and I still talk with him, and it's so funny because when we were at the funeral and everything, we were all blowing our noses and stuff, and he'd hold out his hand for my wet, nasty Kleenexes.
Oh.
And that's what I always told him. I'm like, I said, from the moment you took my dirty Kleenexes, I knew I loved you. But he was there every day, like from morning till night, and just going through everything with us. And he sat through while we were making the arrangements, and he was there completely through that, and then even after. And then when they started sending Keith's stuff back, he was the one that came, and they had a list of everything that was in there, and then he had to go through each and every piece of it with me, and just make sure that everything was there that said was there. So, yeah.
How were his siblings when they received that news?
My oldest son, he was really crushed, because when Keith would come back, from the service and everything, they would hang out, and, and it was his relationship, or their relationship was kind of like mine and Keith. I guess I set the standard there, but they, it was all, hey, you big jerk, blah, blah, blah. And so he, that was hard. My daughter, she's special needs, so it was really different for her. So she didn't cry and she didn't anything like that, but she became very angry. So people would call her, and her friends would come over and want to interact with her and everything, and she would just scream and tell them to leave. And yeah, Keith was her idol. That was just because her older brother was 6 years older, so
right.
They weren't very close. And then Keith, and so when Keith first got his driver's license and everything, he'd want to go down to the mall, but didn't want to go by himself. So he'd ask, come on. Of course she wanted to go, and so they'd go out in the car and ride around and different stuff. So that's the stuff she remembers, and she really
holds on to, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
I can remember him being protective of her. That's one thing I do remember from him when we were younger.
Yeah.
He was protective of his younger sister. What's the age difference between Keith and...
They're all 3 years.
3 years apart.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, very cute. What's one thing that you want folks to remember about Keith?
Just one thing.
Maybe two things.
No, Keith was just, he was just special. Like, and if you were his friend, he would protect you, no matter what. And he was for the underdog. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
So like, even if he didn't know you and it was somebody was being picked on or whatever, man, he was in there and he was going to stand up for them and he was going to fight and do what's right. And it's so funny because in these letters, it said the same thing, that basically he was the guy that everybody went to when they had problems or needed someone to talk to, and that he definitely would watch over the guys that got picked on or the people, you know, that were kind of the outcast and whatever, that he was that person that...
He was a good guy.
Yeah.
One of the good guys. Is there any fun things you want people to remember him by?
He had, and so do I, and I listen to your laugh too sometimes, and I'm like, he had one of the most obnoxious laughs. And so, and that's what, and everybody I talk to, they're always like, oh my God, his laugh. And I'm like, I know, but I think he might have inherited it because I think mine's pretty bad too. So.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I mean, my mom's the same way. It's awful. When I listen, I'm like, that's what I sound like.
I know, because people will be like, I knew you were here because I could hear your laugh. I just couldn't see you. And it's like, yeah.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
His laugh was infectious.
Very cool. You started this thing to kind of keep his memory alive. Can you tell me about the Ride for Pride?
Yeah. Every year on Labor Day weekend, the Saturday of Labor Day weekend, we have a poker run. And
now, do you actually go do it too?
oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were just the organizer.
Well, that and a little bit of everything.
Okay.
But yeah. I'm usually the last person to arrive, and my son gets so mad at me, and he's like, Mom, we were supposed to be back here at 5. I'm like, I know, but Travis had me on the back of his bike, and he's needing extra stuff, and so I get in trouble still. But no, I'm there too. In the morning, we used to do this over at Lehman's Wide Open Road. It was on Worcester Avenue there. Used to be the Harley Davidson shop, and now the church took it over. But anyhow, it was there, and now he closed up, moved to a smaller shop. So now we go out of the new Philly VFW.
Oh, perfect.
So in the morning, starting at 9, we have a pancake breakfast, and that's donation. And we have a lot of people come for the breakfast, but don't, come for the ride, just come to support, or they'll come in the afternoon and for the dinner and stuff. And then we leave. Well, we have a veteran service, usually like about 10:30. We have it's not the VFW, the American Legion, maybe. It's Pat Antonelli anyway that leads it, and they come and do the flags and the arms and stuff and taps. And then we have a prayer, and then everybody takes off. And last bike out is at 11, and then last bike in is supposed to be 5.
Some folks take a little longer.
And then at that time we have dinner ready, and it's usually food that's been donated. Hog Heaven's donated different times. Texas Roadhouse has donated stuff. And we have a dinner. We have a silent auction. Of course, that stuff is set up for the breakfast as well. And then we also have the poker hand. So whoever gets the highest poker hand gets $100. Cool. And then we have a 50-50 drawing as well. And then all the silent raffle.
And where does all the money go to?
So the money, initially we had it going, we started a scholarship in Keith's name. So we have that. And then we found this one program that was called Rebuilding America's Warriors. And they're out, the lady that I guess is in charge of it is actually her husband is a producer or something. Remember the show Nashville?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess her husband was in there somewhere.
Oh,
Her name's
very cool.
Maggie something. Anyway, and we were donating to them. But I wanted to like do something local to them.
Oh.
But right now we're all kind of sitting together and trying to come up with something. Like I said, I really want something local just because, you know, like when we were donating, I mean, they appreciated it, but then they had no idea who my son was either.
Right.
So.
Right. I get that. Keeping his name here alive
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
What made you decide to start the poker run?
Well, actually, it was an idea of, it was someone that had worked at Guide Funeral Home had approached us about, you know, the possibility of doing something like this. And we were like, okay. And then, I mean, I guess I never realized that it was gonna like come to fruition kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the year after he passed, we started it. And it's just been going ever since. This is our 16th year. Wow. Yeah.
He like riding? Is that where it all started
Well,
from?
no, he didn't have a motorcycle or anything. His big thing was his Camaro, and so that the Camaro is always in the ride as well.
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah, we still have it.
Very cool.
And usually my nephew has drove it a few times, and lots of times we just kind of whoever, because some people don't have motorcycles and they'd like, you know, I'd really like to be in it, and so.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, aside from the Ride for Pride, how else are you keeping his memory alive? Whether it be at home, in your day-to-day life, things that you think about?
Every day.
Every day.
On his birthday, and then on June 2nd, September 2nd is his birthday, so June 2nd. Usually a couple of his friends will get in contact and we go down to the cemetery and meet, and we drink a 6-pack of Corona.
Hey, why not? You know, he would probably enjoy that if he were here.
He drank Corona, so we go and have a 6-pack and just stand and BS and just talk, you know, things that
he used to
do and make us laugh and stuff like that. And
that's good. Well, he's with you.
Yes.
Every day, I'm sure you feel his presence in some capacity.
Oh, for sure.
If there was something that you could tell somebody about the military or veterans or the experience that you've been through, what is something that you would tell them?
I feel like veterans, I really, for the most part, don't feel like they get as much respect as they should. I think people take it for granted, what they've been through, or, you know, so I always feel, you know, I go out of my way now, and I probably didn't as much before, but now, you know, if I know somebody's a veteran, I always thank them for their service, you know, just make sure, because you just can't believe how much that means to them. I had a gentleman that lived around the corner from us, and I always used to walk the Dalmatian by, and he had said something about, well, that was Keith's dog, and I'm like, yeah, and then he started telling me that he had been in the service or whatever. So on Veterans Day one year, I sent him a card. And like the next time I was walking the dog, he came out and he was just had tears and just how much that meant to him, and thank you so much for, and it was just the card that said, you know, I appreciate it, thank you for your service, and you know.
And it meant so much. I think you're absolutely right. I've been doing these interviews with a lot of these veterans and different generations of veterans too. I've talked to Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraqi, all of those. And I think it's the same sentiment. They just don't feel appreciated sometimes. And these people, they go out and they fight for our country. And some of them don't make it home. And we're just sitting here, just like sitting back and relaxing. And you're right. We need to be there and thank them and really show our appreciation, because they're putting their lives on the line, you know.
And most of them that come back, especially if they've been in combat, You know, they might not have any scars or wounds that you can see. They might
But
have
there
their
are
legs,
scars. Yeah.
but they are. Keith's one friend he had been with at Fort Polk, that had actually, when he found out about Keith's death, he was just devastated. They were really close, and so he came, but he was going to be a part of the funeral and stuff, but he couldn't after he got there, because like he said, Keith was the first person that he'd ever lost. Like, he'd never known death really before.
Yeah.
And so he just never realized how it would affect him. Here a couple months ago, he would text me from time to time, and we would just joke around, just silly stuff. And he texted me in the morning, one morning, just a heart, and I said, you know, well, good morning to you too. And so we went back and forth a little, and I was talking about, you know, how returning back from combat, how you're not the same. And he said, yeah, I know. He goes, I'm not the same. And then I guess I don't know. I feel so bad because I feel like I could have done something, but maybe not. But he just kept telling me how at peace he was, you know, and I'd be like, you know, well, things change, or, you know, I'm always here, whatever. No, I'm at peace. You know, I'm at peace. So we went back and forth for like maybe half hour, 45 minutes. And then that was it. And then like the next day or so, I was looking at posts on Facebook, and it was between his mom and his on again, off again girlfriend. And it was just, something struck me so weird. And so I called his mom, and I'm like, is there something wrong with Brian? That same day, like a half hour after he talked to me, he killed himself.
Oh my gosh.
He just couldn't take it. He just couldn't take it.
Oh my gosh. That is so sad.
It is. It is.
They just don't know how to transition
No.
back into, because they see things over there, and I'm sure there's guilt. There's so many layers.
Oh yeah, guilt, and then they don't ever unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they live it every day. They're, you know, it's in their dreams. It's, you know, a loud noise makes them relive, you know, a part of that. And, you know, we don't realize that. You know, you don't realize it.
Mm-hmm. I wish there were more services that we could provide
Me too.
those veterans that come back and are really trying to transition into civilian life, because, and I know that there are services that can be provided. I sometimes wish we could do more. Mm-hmm. But then again, it's always them. Are they willing to go through all
that's
of
a
it?
part of it, because they don't want to bring attention to it, you know.
Look weak.
That, or they just like, I don't know, they just seclude and don't want to really be in contact with anybody, you know. They just,
It's a lot.
it is a lot. And I've never had, you know, you hear about suicide all the time, but never having anybody this, you know, close to you. I mean, he wasn't a family member or anything, but I just think, God, if I kept talking to him, or, you know, figured out that why he kept saying he was at peace.
Right. But it's not it's
I know.
your fault. But you'll think that.
Right.
That's because you're so close to it, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times, but we thank, and if you don't feel that, we do thank Keith for his service, and it's horrible that he ended up getting injured and then ultimately passing away, but he gave the ultimate sacrifice, and I know that you got to be so proud of him for doing what he did, and because it takes a really strong individual to do that. So
Yeah.
thank you for sitting with me today. I know this can't be easy to talk about, but I just feel his memory needs to keep being talked about and keep him alive in that aspect, for sure. So
Yep.
thank
For
you.
sure. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, this has to be so hard. I'm so sorry.
Okay.